It stinks, but overall, you look back on it, and now that there's been a few days since the loss, it's easier to realize this was a successful season. We are on the right track. Looking back a year ago from where we had no idea who our coach was. We had no players returning, so we're definitely trending upwards compared to where we were last year.
We are back for another edition. The whole squad's in here. Roman, Jake, Press. We are excited to be back, talk a little college basketball. Unfortunately, Louisville season has come to an end, but we're going to dive into the ins and outs of that and why, I'm feeling pretty positive overall about the direction of the program. But guys, what's going on? It's been a while since we've talked to the people.
It's going. It's not where we want it to be, I guess, at this point in the season, but at the same time, it's very, very successful season. A to A- season from Pat Kelsey. So great feelings centered around the season. We just wish the end of the ACC tournament and the end of or the start of the NCAA tournament could have gone a little bit differently for us. Other than that, though, I'm feeling great, Press. It's great to be back talking with both of you, Jake and Press. Like you've said, Press, we've been doing all kinds of stuff. We've been Derby City Gaming. We've been with the Floyd Street Media crew at the golf foray. I'm forgetting the name of it now. Foray Studio 4.
Studio 4.
Yes, we've been doing all kinds of stuff. Obviously, you guys have been able to get to some games as well since we've all been recording with the three of us. But it's good to be back. Sir. It's good to be feeling good about how the season went at this point, in March. So we haven't another one of those things that we haven't been at this point in the season and felt this way about the team. So at this point, I'm feeling good. So what about you, Jake?
What about you, Jake?
Yeah, I mean a 19 win in a positive way differential from 8 wins to 27. I don't think anyone preseason could have ever predicted that. And if you did tell us that, we would have been absolutely thrilled. I think it does stink. It feels like the season ended maybe a game or two shorter than what it should have gone to. I felt like this team had potential to be round of 32, Sweet 16 possibly. I felt like the team deserved it too with how much they changed this program and helped this fan base out. It stinks that we're the first team out of the tournament. I know on Thursday we lost that game, and I could not watch another basketball game the rest of the day. Took me a full 24-hour reset to get back in and enjoying basketball because I just physically could not stop thinking about that. So it stinks, but overall you look back on it, and now that there's been a few days since the loss, it's easier to realize this was a successful season. We are on the right track. Looking back a year ago from where we had no idea who our coach was. We had no players returning, so we're definitely trending upwards compared to where we were last year.
I could just listen to you talk all day.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, Press, but Jake, guys, I love it so much. I'm sipping straight 100% pineapple juice, by the way. So it just feels good to be back talking to you guys.
Yeah. It's nice. It's comforting in a way, and we are getting back to more of the schedule that we originally were on. Obviously, most of the time that we would have been recording, we were watching games live or creating some content that's come out here recently. So no, I mean it's exciting to be back. I'm definitely bummed about the way that the season ended. Right, like you reel off whatever it was, either 21 out of 23 or 22 out of 24 games to finish the season. The last 3 months of the year were near perfect from that perspective. Right, not many blemishes with just a couple just poorly executed second halves, but overall, a lot of great takeaways from this season. But then, you lead by 5 against Duke at halftime, right? It was a 5-6 against Duke at halftime in the ACC championship game. And then, you're competitive for the first, 15 minutes of the game against Creighton in the NCAA tournament, but just cards didn't have their legs at the end of the season. I think it was pretty apparent. I think that's to me, that's probably my number one takeaway was just that the lack of depth finally caught up to them, right? I mean, you basically had nobody at center. You had James Scott, but he's playing through all the issues with his mouth and everything. And then when
Ryan Kalkbrenner for multiple possessions in the NCAA tournament, that's just...
Yeah, it is what it is, right? I mean, you basically had 2.5 guards down the stretch of the season. When you needed them the most, obviously Chucky Hepburn and Terrence Edwards stepped in, and they were, everything that you needed them to be and more for the most part. But overall, that's just not enough, right? Like you can't win an ACC championship and go deep in March with literally two guards. To me, that's what it came down to, right? Like the defense took a bit of a step back. Shots that Louisville would normally make weren't falling. Louisville wasn't being the aggressor. They went to the line 8 times against Creighton. It was just, a bit of a change in identity. But I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that, you're basically playing 7 guys. And the reality of it is once you get into crunch time, you're really playing just the same 5 guys with maybe rotating in one other person. So that was difficult to process. What were the overall takeaways, last 2 games of the season?
To me, it felt like the lack of any sort of like post game at all, any sort of post presence or respect for our post players hurt us a lot, especially in that Creighton game. Ryan Kalkbrenner essentially lived underneath the rim. Anytime Chucky or Terrence beat their man, which they did consistently, you've got a 7-1 dude right there deflecting or blocking or affecting every single shot. So that was an issue. And then I think, obviously Rain Smith was back in that last game against Creighton, but it was pretty clear that he only played because it was a tournament game. I think that if that was another game against Virginia Tech or Georgia Tech or someone in the ACC, Rain's probably not going to play that game. He's probably not going to play for another week or two. And you saw it offensively, but especially on the defensive end, he only made 1 3, and on the defensive end, every time Creighton got a matchup with him, they wanted to attack him. And then without Rain being effective on offense, like when Rain's out there, we're playing 4-on-4 basketball. That's what I was telling my dad. Like that, whoever's guarding Rain is face guarding him. So you're getting so much extra spacing, one less help defender. And you could just tell our offense just was not functioning the same. And we run so many set plays for Rain to get open looks. And we just didn't have a knockdown shooter to successfully run those plays. So we didn't run them as often and we didn't run them as effectively whenever Rain wasn't out there or was only 60% of who he should have been. So
sure,
lack of post and then lack of Rain really brought us down towards the end.
Yeah, I'll go back to the Duke game, Press. When you don't have Rain Smith, you're just simply not getting enough on the perimeter. We don't have enough on the perimeter. We can't really rely on Kanai's jump shot. We couldn't rely on Abubakar off the ball on the perimeter, right? Javon Hadley late this season, in the last, very, very end of the season, they weren't respecting the jumper as much as they were 2 months ago. So a lot of that affected the play when Chucky and Terrence had to take so much more of a heavy workload without Rain Smith out there, and then us being easier to guard our role players without Rain Smith out there. We just became so much easier to scout at the end of the season, Press, easier to game plan for, I think. And that being said, tougher to say about the Creighton game. You played a winnable game against Duke. Tyrese Proctor, his 6 3-pointers, you defended him well in the second half. Duke played a brand of basketball that just they were sloppy enough and they missed enough shots to where I think you really should have been able to take advantage of them. We had 64 shot attempts to their 50, and the difference was we went 7 for 26 from 3, they went 10 from 27, and they were even on the rebounds and got a few offensive rebounds that were important, and they played better late in the game. So it just came down to not having Rain Smith, being easier to guard late in game situations, right? When you can just wall up the paint and take away everything Terrence and Chucky want to get at the rim, make them become jump shooters, really make them become mid-range jump shooters if you can. You're going to kind of try to force their hand on the perimeter and leave the middle of the area of the paint open. Make them work on the mid-range and floater. So that's not what this offense wants to do, and that became easier to game plan for at the end of the year, I think. So that goes back to what you said, though, right? When you don't have that depth and then you add on to it, right, in the biggest games of the year without your best shooter, a guy who hits 3.6, I think, 3-pointers a game. Like you just said, Jake, it's 4-on-4, right? It's 4-on-4, and everybody in the back of the head has to think about him out there. The other 4 players on their team are kind of worried about him when they see him, and he's out on the perimeter, he's starting to move around, and we're setting screens and stuff. It's 4-on-4, and he's an off-ball player is taking just as much attention as Chucky Hepburn at the top of the key with the ball, or Terrence Edwards at the top of the key with the ball. That's hard to guard, even when we got 2 or 3 guys on the bench coming. Even with Rain not being able to defend, it makes up for everything on offense. So, and you don't have that, it just changes a lot of what we want to do. Even people are gonna be like, well, we play all year well without Case and Pryor. Why did those? It look so apparent. Well, Rain Smith was that important, even as an off-ball player who wasn't. He's not shooting. He was still important for our offense. So, like you said, Jake, and that's just what it came down to. I'm gonna be the ignorant person here and say we had everything we needed. If we just could have had one, like if we could have just had Case and Pryor against Creighton, I think that would have been a completely different game. I said the same thing for Duke. Obviously, we knew we didn't. He's a season-ending injury, but it just goes back to this team really got to that point and us feeling like we should be able to hang around with anybody without what was going to be our best player, right? Chucky was going to be our most important. Kaysen was going to probably be, or Chucky was going to be our best player, but Kaysen was going to be our most important player. And we didn't have that against the biggest teams at the end of the season. So that's just what it came down to.
Yeah. I mean, look, looking back at Creighton a little bit, because of the hecticness of the day, right? Like we live podcast from 10 Roof heading into the game, getting into an NCAA tournament game and all the pomp and circumstances that are around it. It's very distracting. Like it's very easy to get caught up in just the moment, right? So when you really take a step back and you just break down, the 5 guys that were on the floor and what it came down to, it's exactly what we said at 10 Roof. And I mentioned as well that it's very elementary to say this, but it's the truth. Louisville had to have a good shooting game and Creighton not have a good shooting game in order to win this game. And it was the complete opposite, right? At least from deep for Louisville, 27.6% from deep. For Creighton, 45.8% from deep. And they made, I think, 6 of their threes in that run. So it was 28-25 with 6 minutes left in the first half. And then Creighton went on a 21-4 run to close out. Or to, a 21-4 run to get it to, it was 49-29 with about a minute left. And then Louisville scored 2, pretty solid baskets just to close it at halftime with a 15-point lead. So what I'm getting to is, you couldn't let a team like Creighton get hot. It doesn't matter that Louisville won the second half. I think it was 41-40 in the second half. The damage was already done. And it was just that one little run right there that put Creighton over the top. And then they were just solid enough for the rest of the game to not allow Louisville to creep back in. Louisville was, running their offense well and shots weren't falling. And then Creighton would come down and pretty much not do a whole lot of anything. And then Jemiah Neal hit it's got to be at least 4 or 5 shots at the buzzer that were just absolutely just backbreaking. But Creighton, another team that had a lot of solid senior experience depth, right? You have Ashworth for Creighton. He's been there for he's been around for 5 or 6 years. Obviously, Kalkbrenner's experience. Neal was a senior. So yeah, they had some freshmen sprinkled in, but they had a lot of experience from a team that went to what was it, the Sweet 16 or Elite 8?
And they played big games this year,
ago.
Press. They played a good St. John's team. They played a good UConn team. They played in a Big East tournament, right? So they came in prepared.
So, yeah, I mean they were a veteran team. They came prepared. They hit shots when it mattered the most, and that was that, right? But I mean, as we were kind of getting into closing out this season, obviously, Pat Kelsey says never delay gratitude. I mean, so much gratitude can be extended to this team, to this program, the coaching staff, everybody
fan base,
involved with this overall turnaround. The fan base, right? The fan showed up and showed out, right? I mean, there had to be. I mean, it was packed wall to wall at the send off from the fans, right? I mean, we had a great showing over at 10 Roof. I think we probably had 80 to 100 Cards fans before the game. After the game, it was slammed. It was a great showing. I'd say there were probably 12 to 15,000 Louisville fans. Kind of hard to gauge, right? Like there's so many different fan bases in there. Like I saw everything. I saw a lot of Kentucky, saw a lot of Duke. I saw like 15 different NBA throwback jerseys. So, at the NCAA tournament, it's kind of hard to really nail down what the representation is. But I mean, Louisville fans were loud. They showed up, showed out. It was a fantastic, just overall turnout for a Thursday at noon, right? We were loud. We were into it. It was active. Enjoyed my time. Would have done it again, even just to see my team lose, because at the end of the day, this team absolutely deserved it. And I mean, when's the last time you saw Louisville getting blown out and fans stay to the very end? I'm not sure that's ever happened.
No, they're ready to clap his team up after anything, and show their thanks, show their appreciation.
I mean, shout out to the guys that are for sure not coming back, right? Chucky Hepburn, Rain Smith, Noah Waterman, Kadir Traore. Who am I missing?
Terrence Edwards. I think Spencer Legg, one of the walk-ons was right. Patrick Antonelli.
Antonelli and Aiden McCool. Yeah, I mean, what a squad. Like, I mean, they with all the stuff that they went through, right? I mean, Kadir was out for 2 months. Corin Johnson gets hurt second game of the season. Cason Pryor, who was your best player to that point, injured for the season, 8
Noah
games
Waterman.
in, right? Chucky playing injured. Like it was very apparent.
James
Noah
Scott lost
Waterman
some
played
teeth.
injured
Had changed up
for
his
most of
play
the season.
at a little bit until he got the mask right, and I think the mask kind of impacted play a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just playing through injury. I mean, look, every team, every year, there's injuries. People have to deal with it, play through it, manage it, adjust to it. I get that. But the attrition to this roster, and that's really what I wanted to get into a little bit was, I mean, can you guys recall in your lifetimes a time that Louisville had this much attrition on the roster and still was able to kind of conjure up, just keep pulling wins out of their ass?
Nothing like this.
No,
It's
it
never
feels
been like
every
this.
year you've got one guy that's
Mhm.
hurt. That's about it. Like maybe two at most. Never
And it feels like
three,
it's never
4, 5
multiple at the
different
same
important
time,
players.
Jake. I don't know the last time I can recall two guys being seriously hurt at the same time. I know, I'm trying to think here.
It's very uncommon, right?
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting to. I mean, Corin Johnson was going to be your sixth man, right? And he goes down after the second game. Cason Pryor was every bit of all ACC caliber starting center, and he goes out for the season in Atlantis. And Louisville style of play, and has to change drastically, right? Because all of a sudden you have no depth in your front court with Rain Smith getting hurt, right? Like it's all these guys that have had so much impact on the team. I mean, really, when you look down this roster, Javon Hadley, Terrence Edwards are the only two people that I can think of that truly just did not have any super impactful injuries. And we don't even know about them, right? Then the other thing that you get into, obviously, James Scott, probably the worst game of the season against Creighton. Pat Kelsey said after the game that he was dealing with some stuff, like as far as the flu or something was going on, where, they were trying to get some fluids into him and try to, manage that. But I believe he was the player that ran off the court. Somebody left the court and didn't come back for a while.
It was him.
I don't remember if it was. So he was probably in the bathroom if I had to guess, right? So I'm a baby when I have the flu. Like when I had the flu, I did not get out of bed for 3 days. So coming back from stuff like that's not easy. Rain dealt with it. We know that, a lot of the team dealt with it. Coaching staff dealt with it. It was just a freaking season, man. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of that was just too much to manage. And it impacted them all over the court, right? They're not hitting shots they normally make. Like we're talking bunnies. Like look at Chucky at the end of the season. He missed a couple pretty easy layups in the Creighton game. He's missed notably multiple super makeable easy shots, right? Down the stretch of the season. And I think a lot of that's just fatigue. A lot of it's just, it's just you don't have your legs. And when you go up against a team like Duke or Creighton that has 2 or 3 massive dudes and they can just park it in the paint, and you don't have a floor stretcher and you have nothing else you can go to besides James Scott, I mean, they basically have you dead to rights, right? Like it's a matter of when they're going to pull away, not if, right? I mean, and that's kind of how it felt against Creighton. As much hope as I had going into this game, if you can't hit your shots and Creighton's going to make shots at the rate that they were, contested shots over and over again late in the shot clock, I mean, there's not much you can do except for just tip your hat to them.
We had a lack of too many relapses of communication out on the perimeter. You're letting Ashworth get open, a player who's ready to take big shots in a game like that. We kind of knew what Kalkbrenner was going to be able to do, and he kind of did it, but they didn't exploit us with it. It seemed like we did kind of force some tough defensive moments for him where he passed out, I think, as well, like passed out back out to the perimeter and stuff. But at the end of the day, we just didn't have the legs to keep up with what Creighton was going to do offensively for some reason. I thought we knew it was going to be coming. We should have been more prepared for all that many off-ball screens, them willing to go 18, 20 seconds into a shot clock before they're even really debating the shot that they really want to try to get, because they know that they're going to force defensive movement that's going to lead to an open shot if they are patient. And that's what they did in that second half. They kind of just exploited the dead legs, and there wasn't much that we could do. I think we played better in the second half, but not really defensively. We just finally were finding more consistent good shots and things of that nature, but when you give up a run like that, Press, there's nothing you can do. It's in the NCAA tournament, and you know that they're not going to foul. You know You haven't been turning them over at the rate that you
Right.
thought you were going to and needed to going into that game. And at that
Right.
point, you can't play them even in the second half. You've got to go on a run like that. And Creighton is a team that gives up runs. They're streaky. Jemiah Neal was not
Right.
streaky when we needed him to be. So
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, I mean Ashworth, we talked about this a little bit pregame. He's notably a solid shooter, and they let him shoot from wherever, right? Like he has range. But Ashworth, the in the game prior against St. John's was 2 for 10 from three, 3 for 19 from the floor. In their first game of the Big East tournament, he shot 3 for 19 from the floor. He had notably not been shooting the ball well coming into this game. And then, of course, he's pulling from everywhere and making a lot of what he's taking. I mean, for a team to shoot 45, almost 46% from three in a game and almost 58% from the field in a game, that's just been so polar opposite of what Louisville's identity has been, especially during, the long multiple 10 plus game winning streaks during the season. Just overall a tough way to go out because it felt like in the back half of the Duke game and as Creighton pulled away in the first half, that it was just kind of that stretch. That stretch of probably 30 minutes of game time is what cost you the season ultimately, right? You were leading Duke and then they go on a great run and just to start the second half. You're right there with Creighton back and forth, and then they just pull away by making 5 or 6 straight threes. But that's March. This is what you live for. This is what you prepare for. Ultimately, we'll get into it in a second. What it takes to get back there again next year, and how do you improve upon this, right? But Jake, any kind of final thoughts about Louisville on the back half of the season? And ultimately just kind of some of the damning stretches to kind of end the year.
Yeah, I mean, it was a war of attrition. Season always is, and we certainly lost it this year. That's when it came to the flu bug that we had, the injuries that we had, just everything started to pile on us towards the end. Because I truly think if this team is fully healthy, which rarely is any team ever fully healthy, but if you get Kaysen, if you get Corin, if you get Abubakar not being out for 2 months, you get everybody. I think this is an Elite Eight team. Like easily, I think it's an Elite Eight team. Unfortunately, that is not what we got. So at the end of the day, I think you can't be anything but proud of what this team accomplished. 27 wins is still an incredible accomplishment. Bringing us from the depths of the ACC to a top 2, top 3 team in the ACC is still incredible. And then finally, fuck the NCAA for giving us an 8 seed because we still did not deserve an 8 seed. We have not talked about it. We should have been a 5 seed, a 6 seed at worst. I have no idea how we got an 8 seed. It still makes no sense to me. And I think if we're a 5 seed and we're playing a 12, we probably win that game. And I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because we were not going to win the championship anyway, most likely. But that still sucks. We fuck the NCAA for giving us a damn 8 seed against an undefeated 9 seed in Creighton too.
Yeah, I mean, think about the impact of Louisville being a 5 or 6 seed versus an 8 or 9, right? Like, I mean, first of all, I feel like Creighton is a team that was better than a 9 seed, obviously because of their record and they had a lack of quality wins overall. Obviously, that's why they landed a 9 seed. But look, you're not playing a Creighton and then potentially an Auburn if you're just seeded correctly. You're probably playing like a, I don't know, I'm trying to think like a McNeese and then an Iowa State. Like, which, McNeese is obviously a tough challenge, but I'm just throwing a name out there. I'm trying to think of the dozens of teams that I looked over that
it could have been New
were
Mexico,
potential
it could have
matchups.
been Xavier,
Could
could have been someone like that.
Right.
Also, if you look at it, I
And
know people have talked about it. We should have gotten Memphis' seed. We should have been that 5 seed.
yes,
Memphis was net 50 in the fucking rankings, and they got a 5 seed. That is insane. That is literally like the number one tool the NCAA is supposed to use to guide their selections, and they somehow get a 5 seed out of it. The only thing I can think is just at the end of the day, the NCAA decided to look at like top tier quad 1 wins, and that's how they seeded these teams because the rest of the rankings, the BPI, the Ken Palm, Evan Mia, everything that they use to seed these teams makes no sense how Louisville ended up as an 8 seed.
Yeah, I mean, I think Clemson and Memphis
Yeah.
seemed more like 8 seeds, and Louisville seemed more like a 5 seed. Just
At least
overall
a
body
6.
of work.
At least
Louisville
a 6. I don't see
yeah,
how.
yeah. They played a quality non-conference schedule. They won multiple big time games in the non-conference. I thought it was pretty hysterical that North Carolina gets in over. There were 2 teams that West Virginia,
Yeah.
which was a huge resume booster for Louisville, and then Indiana, which was also a resume booster. Those are the first 2 teams out, and Louisville was like holding on to those wins as resume boosters. Those are the first 2 teams out, and that probably gives you an idea at least of where the committee's head was. But ultimately, I think that going back to the NCAA tournament thing, because we didn't really get a chance to talk about this very much, I think that going forward, my mindset and our mindset has to be more about accepting and understanding that this is a made-for-TV event at this point. In college football, it's about the money, but it can be about the money plus other things because the money is just so much greater than it is in college basketball. It is very apparent in 2025 that more so than ever, the NCAA tournament is a huge revenue generator for the NCAA, and they're going to milk that shit for as much as they can, right? And so when you look at Louisville being an 8 seed, but then potentially meeting Auburn in Lexington, that's selling tickets, that's drawing eyes to the TV. When you look at it, Louisville's a storyline that people are wanting to watch, and everybody's going to be tuned in to this game, right? Like, I don't know what the ratings came out to be. I'm not even sure if we know yet, but just think about the number of eyes that were on Louisville and Creighton at 12:15 on a Thursday. That you can't, you couldn't ask for anything better, right? And so to me, I think that it sounds very cynical and sucks to even talk about or mention. But I think that's reality, right? That we're seeing more and more that the NCAA selection committee is not making a concerted effort to really stay along the traditional seed lines that we become accustomed to. And that there are multiple teams every year over the last 5 or 6 years that every prognosticator completely whiffed on, right? Like nobody had North Carolina in the tournament. Very few people did. Every single person had West Virginia in. Every single person had Louisville at a 7 seed or better. And so it's just, to me, it's very apparent what happened here. And I get what you're saying, Jake, that like maybe there was I can't imagine, but with the way that things fell, maybe there was a mix up and that Louisville was supposed to have Memphis or Clemson spot, right? But ultimately, to me, I think it's a lot more simple than what we're trying to make it out to be. Louisville draws eyes. They're going to put Louisville in a region where more fans are going to attend. Like think about if Clemson's in Louisville's region and Louisville goes to Clemson's region. Just think about that for a second, because there'd be 2,000 Louisville fans there versus 12,000. And, they're playing at 4 o'clock, kind of lumped in with a bunch of other games instead of the first game of the tournament. And they're playing, who did Clemson play? McNeese or whoever it ends up being on the 12 line instead of a Creighton. So, that maybe that sounds skeptical or like I'm trying to oversimplify it, but I think that's reality at this point. I think that that's the way that these things go now. And look, it's I don't think they would do that for like a one versus a 2 or a 2 versus a 3 seed type of thing. But at some point, you just kind of have to say like, okay, well, 12s beat 5s and 9s beat 8s and 10s beat 7s, much more frequently. So it matters much less. And they're just kind of honing in on who should be the top seeds. And then how can they draw as many eyes to the region of those seeds as possible?
I don't like it. It's unethical. It's not.
No.
It's not. It doesn't use logic. It doesn't use what teams have earned. They just want to make sure they've got as many eyes on the TVs as they can have and as many asses in those seats as they can get. And I get it. I would probably do the same thing if I was in a position like that. Wrong. I wouldn't. I'd be ethical. I'd make sure these things were done correctly. I'd have people in positions that don't have any affiliations to teams, press. What's up with that?
Right.
I just
right.
I'm not, it's not going to change. There's no point in dwelling on it and trying to create negative narratives around it as much as I think we should.
Sure.
because it's not going to get us anywhere.
Sure.
We just have to try to do whatever we can to avoid that being us being in a position where that limits us, right? And what that means is doing things to get a fourth seed or higher, so they put you in the fucking correct seating. So sorry to cuss, but it shouldn't have to be that way. We did things this season to have earned us a 6, 7, 6, or a maybe a 5 seed. I thought if you would have had a different outcome with Duke, you would have done everything to get a 4 seed. And when you see what Clemson earned, right? I really do believe that even more so. If you just would have beat one of those teams, if you would have beat Duke once or Kentucky, or even that Tennessee team, you would have been in a whole different position. Just with one win in one of those games, you would have been in a whole different position. So next year, make sure everybody's healthy. Make sure you've gotten guys that are required to buy into a system like this, so you can go about playing with all 12, 13, 14 guys that you're planning to utilize next season, and go win as many games as you can, because at this point we've seen now Louisville press, and I hate to do this, Louisville has to go above and beyond to avoid getting bleeped, So
yeah, absolutely. Jake, any final thoughts on seeding, or as the just finish of the season as a whole?
No, I think this season was just proof of concept. Everyone was concerned, I think, whenever Pat Kelsey was originally hired, me included. Who is this guy? You learn more about him. Okay, mid-major coach for a long time, and then you see his personality, start to fall in love with it. See the team come together, and you're like, wow, this is a lot of talented guys. But you still in the back of your mind, you're thinking, can we get 20 wins? Because we've been so shell-shocked over the last couple of years of struggling so badly. So this season was just a proof of concept. We know what we have. We know the coaching staff that we have, the recruits that we're now able to get with NIL and with our winning product, that this will no longer fall back into the basement. We will not go back to these dark years. We are ascending. And so at the end of the day, it's positive. We know what we have going forward, and there's nothing but excitement as we move into this next off-season phase.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great segue. That's a great transition, Jake. And I'm going to do something that we do not do here often enough and throw this thing to break. But when we get back, we're going to talk about Louisville's future. How do you start building a roster? Because I think there's one thing we know here, guys, that if we know anything about Pat Kelsey, it's that he took his time on Thursday, like we all did, to just kind of mourn the season, to look back, to have some gratitude and thoughtfulness about the season. But I guarantee you by Thursday night, he was picking up that phone, calling agents, calling recruits back out there on the trail. And now the advantage, if there is one, is that you have a few extra days over everybody else to start building for next year. So when we get back, we'll talk about what the current roster looks like, how Louisville's constructing it, what we know, and what we think may happen. So when we get back, Starting 502 podcast. I know it sounds silly, but when the national championship is decided, second week of April, the first thing that's going to come out on Tuesday morning, or maybe even Monday night, from Joe Lunardi or whoever's out there, Gary Parrish, they're going to come out with their way too early top 25 for the college basketball season, because that's how this thing works, right? After the Super Bowl, they're already putting out odds for next season. Who's going to win the Super Bowl next season? The engine is starting to churn already, right? I think for Louisville fans, the next thing is, okay, well, we're very grateful for what the players that are leaving did, but that leaves at least 5 or 6 empty roster spots going into next year. And then we don't know who's going to transfer out. We don't know what that looks like. So obviously there's going to be some thought behind that. I would imagine this coming week, there will be a lot of conversations between the coaching staff and current players. I know Kenai Roos is a big one that everybody's talking about because of Louisville's potential depth in the front court. Corin Johnson is a guy that I haven't seen that dude's face since November. So I don't know what's going on there. So there is potential for, some significant roster turnover and shakeups, just as there is every year. And a huge wrinkle that's being thrown in this season is that now college basketball teams can have 15 scholarship players on their roster, which would have been hugely beneficial for Louisville this year if they had the 15 scholarships and decided to use it. Obviously, you have like Kenny Payne situations where we say like, oh, don't worry, he'll get another guard, and then he never gets a guard. But I think for a Pat Kelsey and company style roster, I would think that they're probably going to try to fill up the roster with 14 or 15 scholarship players. So let's talk about it, right? So number one, we know who's gone for sure, right? So we talked about him earlier. Chucky Hepburn, Terrence Edwards Jr., Rain Smith,
Abubakar
Abubakar.
Traore,
Noah Waterman.
and Noah Waterman. All right, so that's 5 guys that are gone right there. So that puts Louisville's roster at this point at 8. And then on top of that, I think who would you guys say? Let's start it here, right? Who would you say is the most likely defector from this roster? I think we would all probably have the same answer, but I want to hear from you guys.
What do you think, Jake?
I would likely say Corin. I think that we've had questions about Kanai, not really because of anything that he's said or he's done, but just as we see this roster shaping up, and you've got Ali Khalifa, and you've assumedly got James Scott, and you've got Sonny Frew coming in, you're looking at a really crowded front court. So you could say Kanai, but Kanai, in the post-game interview that he had, he said, I'm going to get back here and I'm going to take this team far. So it seems like as of right now, and things can change, he can get a bag from someone else, or he can see this roster shaping up and he doesn't see himself a part of it as much as he wants to be, and he could leave. But could be Kanai, could be Kaysen, could be Javon, but I think the most likely guy is Corin, just because Corin's still on the bench. I see him on the bench, but we really haven't seen anything come out. Like even with Kaysen, we've seen Kaysen talking about in his Instagram stories how he's going to come back and he's ready to come back. We haven't seen anything from Corin. So if there's any most likely defector, which there will be, it would be almost impossible to not have a defector of some sort. That's just not what happens in college basketball these days. It would most likely be Corin in my mind.
I think I agree with your reasons on why, Jake, for sure. And I'm right there with you on those reasons why. However, I think basketball reasons could potentially keep Corin invested, knowing that he's going to have to be the veteran guard. You know, we're probably bringing in 2 freshman guards, and Guillermo Del Pino and Michael Brown, of course, right? And Kobe Rogers is coming back, who's going to be what I believe a redshirt senior, like a senior with another year of eligibility after this, I believe. So
technically Kobe Rogers because he came from D2. I'm sorry, so that's different. So Kobe Rogers, this could be his last year. I was thinking he went to JUCO.
He was a junior last year. Oh yeah, and this was his senior year, but he redshirted the entire thing, so he'll get another one, which will be his redshirt senior year. Right. I think that could potentially keep Corin. You know, he could. That's another ball handler. He's going to have a lot of time on the floor and a lot of time with the ball in his hands to be a productive player here if he does come back, I think. But at the same time, based on the things that I've just seen, how this at the end of the season here and the games he's been at, he did go down, make it down to Lexington with a team, but missed a lot of games as well and stuff I saw. So not really sure where he's leaning, and there hasn't been any reports, it seemed like. I would have to say Javon Hadley. As much as I think Javon Hadley would do well, I'd like to see him back. I think he would enjoy being back. The things I keep hearing just keep seeming like he might be ready to make that next move to out of college basketball. And the fact that I keep hearing that and I didn't hear anything at the end of the season, any press interviews or anything like that with certainty. So I'm going to say Javon Hadley.
Wow. Okay. That surprises me because my next question for you guys was going to be Kaysen Pryor, Javon Hadley. Louisville has essentially, we talked about the 5 leaving for sure. There are 2 that are very uncertain for an unusual circumstance. That circumstance being that Javon Hadley and Kaysen Pryor both played a season of JUCO ball. And so because of essentially an NCAA rule litigation, I don't know what you want to call it, because of an NCAA rule, Pryor and Hadley have been awarded another year of eligibility if they so choose to take it. And so that leaves us with 8 people on the roster, but with 2 guys that we're not really sure one way or the other. Neither one of them walked on senior day, which I don't know if that's indicative of anything or if that's more of the coaching staff knows that they're going to play another season, but they don't know where that's going to be yet. So if you guys are constructing this roster with what you know now, and we'll get into what we know now here in just a second, who would you rather see on this roster next season? Is the case?
I think it's Kaysen Pryor. I think with what we've just seen in the the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament with this Louisville roster and how Pat Kelsey wants to play, depth is going to be a requirement going forward. With depth that can shoot and stretch the floor is going to be critical, a critical advantage for us. And I think Kaysen Pryor's ability to play in and out, put the ball on the floor, and be a even more versatile defender than Javon Hadley is, I believe, it would be critical for us and could be essential for us. The fact that he can play 4 and 5 with a passer like Ali Khalifa out there, you could play Kaysen Pryor, Ali Khalifa, and James Scott and not be losing anything on the perimeter with what you get from Kaysen and Ali. Yeah, come on, bring back the 6'11" guy. I'm sorry, Press. As much as I love Javon, I think Case and Pryor's abilities can be in this Pat Kelsey system is when you have depth and he doesn't have to be the most important guy, but is one of your better players. I love it.
What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. No shade to Javon Hadley whatsoever. I thought he was incredible this year and was truly a glue guy that could get you 31 game, could get you 12 rebounds the next, could hit a couple threes, whatever was asked of him, he was doing. But I don't think there's any argument that Case and Pryor, when he was healthy and really wasn't even playing all that well offensively, was our best or second best player in the 7 games that we got to see him. And I don't think we realized, it's been so long, but just how much Louisville's defensive identity changed when we lost Case and Pryor. Like, he is such an important player with his ability to defend the perimeter, to defend the post, to rebound, the way he would hard hedge on screens. And like, it was once or twice a game, he would just fly through a ball screen and just rip it and go get a dunk. I mean, he's so impactful in ways that stats really didn't even show it. Cause you looked, I know some fans, like UK fans or something, would show like, oh, you guys are complaining about this guy and he was averaging 12 a game and wasn't shooting effectively. But like, if you watch the games, you saw how impactful he was to this team with his offensive versatility, with his defensive versatility. So yeah, if there's one guy, it's got to be Kaysen. I mean, he's just can offer so much in so many different areas for this team.
Yeah, so it's funny because I asked this question. I don't remember who was on with me. I don't remember I think it was either Jake or Jacob. But we asked this question back in, I think it was like late December, early January. And where things stood then, both of us said that we'd rather have Javon Hadley back. But I think because of the way that Louisville was able to play games, where they were still able to dictate the pace of the game, where they had the size advantage against some lesser opponents, I think that we saw so much value in Javon Hadley. And I still do see value in Javon Hadley, right? This is a guy that shot almost 50% from three in ACC play. He's a guy that it was just able to be a dog and get you a basket whenever you needed it. He often played like a small ball center for Louisville, but he could also be kind of like a stretch guard. I know that he was like the 2-man when Louisville was down like one guard in a game. So it's fascinating that I am in agreement with you guys that I think that Case and Pryor at this point would be a better fit. But I think that we saw the reality of what Pat Kelsey's system looks like if you don't have somebody that can stretch the floor. And Case and Pryor can be that guy. He can be a guy that can shoot the ball well, but he can also be a fantastic
He can
defender.
be a slasher. He can be a shot creator off the dribble because of his length and size and his stride. He one dribble and he's to the rim. You know?
He's a Swiss Army knife, man. And, it's funny. I went back and, I've been cutting a lot of tape of Rain. I've been looking through like old clips and just kind of, cleaning things out and getting ready for next season. And the one just super noticeable thing about this Louisville team from earlier in the season, while there were a lot of growing pains, they played at such a high pace. They pushed the ball so well. There was such a well-rounded knowledge of who was getting the ball next and making effective passes to get your teammate into the right place, right? And with the attrition and injuries that took place on this roster over the course of the season, the play started to get slower and slower and slower. Louisville's not jumping passing lanes. They're not playing up on their man. They're not closing out as well on 3-point shots. They're not, they did become a better rebounding team. They became a better free throw shooting team. They got to the line more, but they changed stylistically so drastically from the beginning of the season. Like if you remember when they went down to the Bahamas and played Calgary and I can't remember who the Bahamas national select team, whatever it was. You remember, I think that the number one thing that everybody noticed was just how high paced things were and how well conditioned this team was and how well they fit together regardless of how fast they were playing. And when you look at Duke going into this postseason or Auburn or even a Creighton or these teams that we've seen now, North Carolina, Clemson's an anomaly because I think they play more similar to how Louisville adjusted to. But what I'm getting to, Florida's a great one. Alabama's a great one. Kentucky's a great one. Teams that have been successful over the last few years have been this more modern style that Pat Kelsey plays. And it was very apparent when Louisville was losing its legs, where they couldn't sub anybody in or out. They were getting into foul trouble at the end of the first half. That it was like, okay, we just need to hang on for the rest of this half and then kind of come out and recoup. Against Creighton, it was very apparent that Creighton was just the more, they had more senior depth. They had more guys that could be,
they had more pep in their
that
step. They
Swiss
had
Army
more
knife.
bounce
And
to them. You know what
they
I mean?
did, and they played so much quicker, so much crisper. The team started to take away what Louisville does well, and Louisville couldn't combat that because they couldn't bring the speed and the kind of helter-skelter style of play that Pat Kelsey and the staff prefer, and that has been so successful for so many teams around the country. I mean, you look at even like a Gonzaga this year. There are so many teams that play
Coaches who
that
haven't
style
played
of ball.
fast in the past
And,
are playing faster than they've ever played before.
right. Yeah. I mean, to Louisville's credit, right? Like they've scored 70 points in almost every game this season, even against Creighton, right? But at the end of the day, they did what they did. They scored so many points because they had a couple of players that were so good at getting to the line and so good at creating, for themselves and others. That's not necessarily what's going to be taking place, what's going to be transpiring as they're building this roster. And that's not how I anticipate this team playing ever again under Pat Kelsey. Like this feels like more of an exception to the rule. So with all of that in mind, though, I think that Cason Pryor it would be crucial to this roster next year. And if you don't bring back a Cason Pryor, I think, based on, the way that he plays and what he would be dictating on the market, I would think that if Cason Pryor doesn't come back, then you open up the door for a lot more NIL, right? Like we've heard the conversation, surrounding the program over the last few weeks that Louisville is probably top 5 in the country in the amount of NIL that they're going to have in their arsenal going into next season. But as they're building that roster, Cason Pryor is going to take up a huge chunk of that. If he stays, right? So
He's better.
if he stays,
He
he's
better
a
learn.
building block.
Cason, you're coming off of an ACL. You gotta get back right. And we've got some. If Nate Mint, he's got to be understanding. If Nate Mint's here, if Nate Mint and Louisville are on the same page, Cason, you're gonna have to take a little bit of a pay cut because we're gonna be playing guaranteed winning top 15, top 10 basketball all year long with Nate Mint, Michael Brown, and the players that are returning. So I like to think that Cason will buy into the winning, and I won't even say pay cut. I think it would be actually taking a very close, similar amount of money that he just took. Maybe if I'm wrong about what it is, maybe even less. If you're closer to that, high end range where he was he was one of the more highest paid players in the country, actually. So it probably couldn't be that same amount. You know what I mean? If it was that, I think that if we get a Nate Mint, if we get a Cason, Nate Mint, if he's on the same page with Louisville, I think that Cason Pryor would have to be understanding at that point.
Yeah, I'm also curious. I know I read someone screenshotted an On3 Plus article that I'm not paying for that said Louisville is going to spend $8 to $10 million on the transfer portal. I feel like that's what it said in the article. Is that figure just on the transfer portal, or is that figure like just our total NIL budget? Because the article said transfer portal, and 8 to 10 million just in the transfer portal, not including the guys you're keeping, seems crazy high. But 8 to 10 million overall makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend that I know that, right? Like, ultimately, we are now associated with the 502 Circle of Fleet Street Media. But at the end of the day, I am not privy. Nobody. There's very few people that are privy to that kind of information. I would find it hard to believe that they have that kind of budget just for the transfer portal alone. I would think that's a full roster construction budget. Dan, don't come for me if that's not true, but like that's based on what you know about other programs and what they have in their arsenal as well. I would think that, I would think that 5 to 10 or 8 to 10 just for 4 or 5, 6 transfer portal players would be extremely aggressive.
It'd be insane. You would have that would be like the 5 top transfer players in the nation if that was truly your budget.
Yes, correct. So I think that is a realistic and very high level budget for an entire roster. I mean, if you think about the fact that these guys are not even here for a full season, like they're not even here for a full year. So if you like really broke it down into, I mean, what it is, right? That they're, just paycheck to paycheck, right? Just think about $2 million and somebody spending 6 to 8 months on campus and what the installments are on those payments. So when you take that into consideration, it makes it a little bit more understandable that some of the numbers that are thrown around are a little bit ridiculous and probably not super realistic.
You've got to get the eyes and the ears on us. You got to make sure everybody knows that we're players in the field, even if that's not the exact whatever we're working with or going to be willing to work with, I should say. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a repeatable source is putting those numbers out there. I just think that it was incorrectly written that it's just for the transfer portal. I think that Louisville, I mean, and we'll get into this now. I mean, this is a great transition. I think that ultimately Louisville is going to be bringing in what are we talking here? 6 transfers, maybe? Like, is that where you max out, right? Because I incorrectly gave the number of 8. As of right now, if everybody came back, you'd have 7 guys on the roster. So you'd have Corin Johnson, Kenai Roos, Kason Pryor, Kobe Rogers, Ali Khalifa, and James Scott without any of the freshmen that are coming in. And then you're bringing in Sanan DeFrew. You're bringing in Michael Brown. Why would I keep wanting to call him Michael for whatever reason? And then if you bring in Nate Ament, then that's a really damn good, freshman class. I mean, that's maybe one of the better freshman classes in program history. I don't think that's hyperbole.
That'd be the best freshman class in program history by far.
Yeah. I know that there's, ratings wise, maybe because of the lack of players, there might be something higher, but Louisville's never landed the ratings talent, like the overall, one and done type of talent, like a Nate Ament or Michael Brown ever. Like, that's just not been a thing. That's not how they've structured this program for many, many years. So with all that in mind, I'm curious from your all's perspective, if there's 10, 11 guys on this roster that we know about right now, what are the pieces that you think that Louisville needs to bring in?
You got to bring a star wing player in, right? Let me rephrase that. If you don't get Nate Ament, you've got to bring in a star wing scorer. You've got to replace Terrence Edwards' production, and it has to be with something like somebody that can play that 2, 3, and even minutes at that 4 spot when we go to play some small ball. Somebody that's 6'6", minimum 6'8", 6'6" to 6'8", 6'7", kind of a player who can kind of do it all, put the ball on the floor, score at all 3 levels. The fact that we've had such a lack of someone who could consistently, outside of Chucky Hepburn, hit that mid-range jumper or that floater or that 6 foot around the basket kind of a game, and was also a stretch, like you had to guard them out on right. Javon Hadley can play that game in the perimeter or in the post, but you weren't guarding him out on the perimeter at the same rate that you had to stay with him as a post player, right? So obviously it's kind of a no-brainer. When someone's in the post and they get the ball, you got to guard them up tight. But Javon Hadley could, if you don't have the right matchup on him down low, he could win the game. He could beat you by himself. But he wasn't stretching the floor out, and he wasn't a true shot creator from the perimeter as that third kind of an option. I'm not saying this player needs to be a second or third or first option, but it needs to be somebody who can put the ball on the floor, shoot off the dribble when they need to, good catch and shoot player, and can get to the rim pretty much at will. And I want this player to be able to – I mean, I don't think they're looking at anybody like that who can't defend. But obviously I don't want somebody who's doing that and as a cone defensively. You've got to get a good 6'7", 6'6", or 6'7", 6'8" kind of a player. Or, like how good that player has to be is kind of also up to Kenai Roos. You could maybe go find another Kenai Roos, a player who's going into his sophomore year who maybe made some good strides throughout the year and is at that 6'7", 6'8" kind of a range to pair up, just to get another lengthy wing player who can, hit jumpers and play down low and is a smart basketball player. That's sorry for the miniature ramble there, but I think getting some length out on the perimeter that stretches the floor, good shooting, unselfish, obviously, because we're going to have a lot of moving pieces, and you're not going to play 35 minutes a night in this team. If the recruiting and the transfer portal goes well for us, everyone's going to be playing 22 to 30 minutes. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at the guys that we are almost guaranteed to return. You would say Kobe Rogers, that's a guard, point guard, maybe a shooting guard at best. Casey Pryor, more of a 4 or a 5. James Scott's a center. Ali Khalifa is a center. Kanai is a 3-4, but he's really not like a ball handling, shot creating wing. Corin, guard as well. Javon, more of like a small ball 4 or 5. Michael, a point guard. Sonny Frew, center. So really, like you said, Roman, it needs to be an elite wing player, a guy that can create his own shot, shoot, and defend on that wing. I think that's the glaring hole. And then also filling that Rain Smith role, a guy that can, like we said earlier, allow you to play 4-on-4 basketball, a guy that
That was going to be my
the
next.
other
Yep.
team has to 100% have on their scouting report every single day, know where he
Yep.
is. And I think as we've seen some guys that we've reached out to, like Pat Kelsey's going to find that. Like there are so many set plays that we ran for Rain. I don't know as a shooter how you could watch Louisville's offense and not be like, God, please let me play in that system. Let me put up
That may
seven
be
threes a
more
game.
important, Jake. Like that may be more important than that wing player. Say hypothetically, you bring Javon Kaysen back, and then you bring in Sonny Frew. Ali Khalifa's now healthy, and you don't recruit any wing player, and that's what you got. Kanai back as well, and that's what you're working with, right? The same front court that you had, James Scott, Kaysen, now with Ali and Sonny, and then you've got Javon Hadley and Kanai Roos. That Rain Smith replacement, if you don't bring in that 6'8" kind of do-it-all scorer, is going to be even more important. Just because we've seen the shot creation we get from those kind of guys. Obviously, Casey Pryor was going to be a next level kind of shot creator for us, but Michael Brown, he's got it all, but he's still a young body. His body's still young and growing. He's not the fastest guard yet, right? He's still growing, like he's still getting stronger, right? He's not gonna. We don't want him playing 38 minutes a night and not being able to finish out the damn end of the season because he's got overworked as a freshman. So we don't know what the jumper like how if he's a 39% kind of a shooter or a 34% kind of a shooter yet. We're going to have to see how that translates to the ACC college basketball play. But I think, sorry, to kind of take your point away from you, Jake, but that was going to potentially be even more important than that wing kind of player if you hypothetically bring everybody back, or just because of how heavy that front court usage is going to be. Ali Khalifa needs a Rain Smith. You know what I mean? That's going to utilize him even take his game up. Sonny Frew is going to take his game up. You saw that, he kind of tries to create a lot off the catch from the perimeter into the paint. You can't do that without a Rain Smith, because if that's Kanai man's out there and Kanai's jumper hasn't gotten to where we want it, Kanai's man's just going to slide over and block that off. This is a little bit different.
I 100% agree. I think just in general, when we were building this roster, we're looking like we've got so many dudes that are great shooters. And unfortunately, I don't know if it ended up being we just had to play so many minutes. We didn't have legs. We didn't shoot as well. But it did feel like we were not as good. We shot a bunch of threes, but we still weren't an effective three-point shooting team this year. So I'm also curious if probably every guy that he brings in, PK is going to want him to be a good shooter. So I think ultimately this offense flows at its most efficient level when everybody on the court is a three-point threat. And unfortunately, towards the end of the season, we didn't have that. Like Chucky was shooting above average, Terrence was shooting below average, no rain, Abubakar can't shoot, James can't shoot, Javon wouldn't shoot a lot, but was still an okay shooter. So like I think in an ideal world, efficiency wise, you want 5 dudes on there that can shoot. So I think that's what you need to look for. I would also, one thing that as I'm watching March Madness and you're seeing these truly like elite of the elite teams, the Auburns, the Alabamas, teams like that, they just have athletic freaks, physical freaks. Houston, they outmuscle you. I think that's something we saw, especially when we played in the SEC, that we got pushed around. So if we could get one or two just dogs, like a Sion James or like a Caleb Glenn, like dudes that are super physical, super athletic. I think that's one thing that was missing from this roster. We didn't have anybody that was more athletic than the person they were guarding once we got into like really high level competition.
I mean, you can
Obviously,
look at that. You can look at that with Clemson,
athletes.
just to start our starting lineup versus Clemson starting lineup. Who's more physically aggressive as a basketball player than anybody we've got in that starting lineup? You're right. You're completely right. Yeah. Same thing with Duke. Outside of Knipple, he's a. I mean, let me not go into that, but I think you're completely right. Now, is that? I mean, that's I kind of view that as like a weakness Louisville had. Talk to me. Is that like one of the main weaknesses you would say Louisville had that needs to be addressed in the portal? Because I don't even want to look at the shooting. I think the shooting was this was a flukish year. I think it was with what was going to be Pat Kelsey's Louisville team's shooting. I think it was so bad at the start, and that's not going to be the case going forward. And that was partially I mean, Kobe Rogers is a good shooter off the catch. Ali Khalifa can shoot. Those would have helped us. Kason Pryor was a good shooter. Corin Johnson was a good shooter. So we did not have a lot of shooting that we had on the roster playing. But I wouldn't count shooting as a weakness. But let's just say we've already addressed that, actually. What weaknesses do you see outside of that physicality and that strength that we've kind of lacked? Is there anything else that needs to be addressed in the portal in terms of Louisville weaknesses?
Yeah, I like I said earlier, I think it is physicality. I think that is the one thing that we saw this team really lack down the stretch. And when you started playing Clemson, Duke, Creighton, if we had made it further into the tournament playing Auburn, talent-wise, I think we were there, but from a size, length, athleticism standpoint, we were not there. So I would love if we could just get a couple
just
of
guys who
dudes
can
that,
just strong.
they're
They can.
they're the strongest dude. They're the most athletic dude on
They're
the
not
court.
getting blown
I
by
think that's
through.
something
Yeah,
that,
you're not going to get bounced off of and get blown by little things like that. They're not going to get out muscled on an offensive rebound or anything like that. We need 2 or 3 bodies like that, or we need Sonny Frew to come in and be one of those guys. You need Ali Khalifa to make sure that 50 pounds he lost got turned into some aggressive muscle. You know,
yeah.
Kadai, eat your mashed potatoes, my boy. We need you to get right.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe Rogers, I hope he's getting right. I think what's his name, Eli Foy, our weight trainer. I think he's going to be able to improve everyone in that facet. But that's the main thing that I would have said as well. Press. I don't think we really I think Terrence Edwards and Chucky held their own really well. And I don't think Javon Hadley got bitched in the post or anything like that overly or looked like he had a mismatch too often. But he was 6'6", 6'7". You know, he's not.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing the best he could for the frame that he
really
was
looks
given,
more
but
6'5",
unfortunately he's playing the 4 and the 5.
So, and James is James age-wise would be a freshman right now, I think, right? Like he would have been ending his freshman year if he wouldn't have reclassified or whatever, how that goes. So that's you're right. That's 100% the case. We're not going to be able to beat the SEC teams and those big kind of roster top to bottoms, fully athletic teams with a bunch of craftiness and players playing at the right spots with the right lineups. You also just got to have some flat out athleticism, aggression, and strength on your team as well. Because you're going to have injuries. You can't have the guys that are having to step up midseason for 4 or 5 games be guys built like Kenai Roos. You know, they've got to be guys that are bigger. Kenai Roos has to be someone that's playing smaller minutes and is growing into his body and growing into his game and finding his own and not having to be relied upon to guard big kind of guys, right? Or you got to find Abubakar Traore. You got to find those kind of freak athletes that are just, you don't maybe not look the biggest, but they're going to play big. And Javon Hadley, they did that, but Abubakar more so did that defensively, while Javon Hadley did that more so offensively. I think you're 100% right. Strength is going to be critical. Size, I think in your role players, you got to have some size. You got to be able to defend. Noah Waterman kind of guys that maybe a little bit better defensively, but just go grab another 6'10", 6'8" guy that's just a shooter. He's just a shooter and he's big.
Yeah,
he's not going to be an important player for you. He's going to be a screener. He's going to be an offensive rebounder, and he's going to be a shooter. And that's going to be it. And he's not going to be asked to defend high level players. Grab one of those. Go grab literally a Sion James, a guy that's literally a defensive specialist. Doesn't shoot jump shots, gets to maybe doesn't shoot jump shots. Sion James can shoot a little bit, but his game isn't shooting. His game is getting to the basket, playing big, offensive rebounds, hustle plays. We didn't have a lot of hustle play kind of guys. Like Abubakar Traore was kind of like our only, his game was going after 50-50 balls and just being the more athletic player in a matchup where that's what it was up to. So, you've got to find some of that.
I think last thing too, and I don't know if we need another one because I think we're bringing them in with Sonny Frew, with Ali Khalifa, hopefully with the development of James Scott, with the development of Kason Pryor, post players. We had traditionally, you've seen Louisville teams, obviously not Pat Kelsey teams, but most teams in general, if the offense is stagnant, you can get it down to a big man, get him on the block, and he can go 1, 2, put up a shot. We did not have when the offense was not working, it was Chucky put his head down. It was Terrence put your head down and force something. There was never any just easy interior post-up looks from anybody. And so I think we already have these guys coming in or already on the roster, but that's another thing that next season we need to have to make the offense work even better because truly there was no post threat.
I think you're completely right. It doesn't even have to go. It doesn't even have to go be like a starting caliber player like that big that Notre Dame had coming off the bench. Just huge body. Just go get some huge body that if he doesn't get double teamed, he has just a size advantage with 2 dribbles to get a shot attempt up and has a little bit of a soft touch and can maybe force a foul and shoots above 65%. If you can just go find something like that as like your 14th guy, like a Frank Anselm eBay that is 270, and all he can do is give you two soft shoulders and get to the basket. Because you're gonna need that. Make that go be your glue guy. Go find your Frank Anselm eBay. I want someone that's like all he can do is kind of command a basket down low and be that big body. It looks like we've got Press jumping back in here. Press, while we've kind of gotten towards the end of everything we were looking to address here, I would like to ask you, just before we kind of, I don't want to leave you out of any recruiting questions here. Do you have anything that you think, if you just based on Louisville weaknesses, the things you thought Louisville needs, had the most struggled with the most throughout the season, had the most lack of consistency with throughout the season? What would you say that was, and how would you address that in the transfer portal?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that first and foremost, I think that the most important thing for Louisville is more size and physicality from that standpoint, right? So what I mean by that is this was a very aggressive Louisville team. They played with that chip on their shoulder mentality. They were tough. They were, gritty, like, all of the, the stereotypical tough, right? Like I get all of that, but at the same time, you have to have some weight to throw around. And in my opinion, Louisville could play tough and gritty all they wanted, but at the end of the day, when it's Siobhan Hadley, who's 6'5", 190, being the aggressor, I think that there needs to be a little bit more size, and I think that could come at the guard position, right? Like Michael Brown doesn't have stellar size, but he's a little bit bigger than Chucky, but it's coming in the front court, right? Like you're seeing Nate Abant, if he's a guy that joins the fold. You're seeing, an Ali Khalifa is a guy that's down to 250 pounds. Sonny Frew is a guy that's a pretty big dude as well. I'd say, I don't know what he's listed at, but I'd say if I just had to like eyeball it, he's probably 240 ish. Right. So, right there, we just named three guys that are adding size to the squad. And so to me, I don't know if you guys have talked about him quite yet, but Nick Davidson's a guy that stands out to me that feels like just the perfect fit for the Pat Kelsey mold. He's a guy, he's listed at 6'8". I'd say he's probably closer to 6'9", 6'10". He plays like a stretch big man. He doesn't play a lot back to the basket. He scores a lot at the rim.
He's like Noah Waterman with a real pure handle and a true slashing ability.
Yeah, I'd compare him to I don't know if it's because it's a white guy named Nick, but I'm going to compare him to Nick Mayo. I think that, a name that Louisville fans know a lot, like he reminds me of like a younger Nick Mayo at EKU, in my opinion, that he is aggressive going to the basket. He's a guy that can score at all three levels. He defends well. He's, not crazy athletic, not super fleet of foot, but man, he's a guy that can be fun to watch.
He'll catch you on a pump fake sidestep and launch one.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to see. Any other names that were kind of thrown around at this point that you guys feel like are?
We hadn't really answered it based on names. We just like the types of specific things you would need to look for in the portal in terms of height, size, and then what position kind of stuff we were looking at.
Right.
Jake, did you have any other specific names you wanted to potentially have been hearing Louisville should be looking at or is looking at?
Yeah, I mean, one guy I wanted to bring up is Corey Calker. If you're on Louisville Twitter, you've probably seen his name thrown around. We offered him back in November. He's an undersized guard out of Eastern Florida State College, which is D1 JUCO. Put up 13 points a game, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. I've watched just his highlights. I don't typically dive in until I know for sure he's on the team. But I mean, he's a shooter. He had 5 3-point attempts per game, and he shot 36%. His assistant coach tweeted about him, and then at the end of it said Louisville commit, and then Corey retweeted that onto his page. So it seems like something is in the works there. This is a depth piece. Certainly would not expect him to be playing 25, 30 minutes a night, but could just be another guard that, God, we could have used Corey Calker this year just to have another guard that we could trust to let Chucky have 5 minutes off the floor at a time. So that's an interesting guy. It seems like he's going to be on the roster. I think officially you can't announce it just yet. But it sounds like that's a guy, and it's a good depth piece. He's undersized. I wouldn't expect him to be able to get to the rim, finish really, really well, but he's a great shooter off the dribble and off the catch. So that's a guy that's at least interesting. And those are the pieces that don't get you super excited. but are necessary to have a complete team to get to March. And, maybe he's only playing 5 minutes to start the year, but with injuries or just with him elevating his own game, he's playing 12, 13, 14 minutes a night. Those are guys you end up needing.
Yeah, I mean, like there's something to be said for Frank Anselm eBay on this year's team, right? Like a guy that we talked about. That's a guy, the pieces that you're missing. We didn't even mention Frank, right? Like, I mean, that's a guy that was taking up a scholarship and a guy that was, by all accounts, an important piece in the locker room.
I made a comment about Frank. When Jake was. I was kind of agreeing with Jake because one of the things Jake said is that we need more strength and size and players who have got that just flat out athleticism. Because a lot of the best teams in the nation right now are top to the bottom, athletic, size, good length at every position, good strength in your front court, right? Kind of players, and just some more of that in our role players. And one thing I said is that like the guys that aren't planning to be our starter caliber, important kind of guys, like we didn't have a traditional back to the basket post player who can just in 2 dribbles in either shoulder with either hand make a good shot attempt on a one-on-one post play.
Yeah.
Because we kind of thought Frank was going to be able to be that, like in the minutes he's out there, if we have to, you can give it to him. He'll be able to one little move and just put something up if you need to, because that wasn't really James's game, right? You needed some size, strength, and if he has to, he can do something in the post if you need it. Frank wasn't really at that level like we thought he was potentially going to be.
Right.
Not that we'd actually seen that, but you just thought, in the ACC, he played on some SEC teams. He's excited about being here, and we knew this was going to be a roster that utilized pretty much everybody it could. I think I want to see like a 260, 270 pounder. I want Frank's role to be somebody who that's the only thing he can do. It's just in 2 dribbles with either hand, get you a good shot attempt on a one-on-one back to the basket post play. Shoot 65% or better from the free throw line. Just give me 65% or plus, 270 pounds. Like that, like the Notre Dame big man who came off the bench. They had one. There's a couple teams this year that had that 7-footer off the bench. It was just some big heavy body that screened hard, rebounded well, and didn't really get asked to do anything. And that's kind of what I want. I want someone who's like that. Our biggest player, our least important player, needs to be the biggest player on the roster.
Yeah,
I think that's just. You're setting yourself up for more potential insurance in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and look, size can be incredibly beneficial when you get into March when things are officiated much differently than they are the rest of the season, right? Look at the dog's here for Jake's dog hater 9124. He's going to be pumped about that.
What's your dog's name again, Jake?
Daisy.
Daisy's in the vid. Daisy's in the pod.
Yeah.
Get Daisy on the pod. We love Daisy.
Yeah, we love Daisy. We want more Daisy.
Daisy's
content.
a member of the show, loyal member of the show, and Daisy does have some lovers out there. So shout out to the Daisy enjoyers, to the Daisy haters.
She listens to every podcast.
But very, very quickly though, Kamen Malowak for Duke is a guy that's really propelled them in the postseason. I mean, he's a guy. He single-handedly won Duke the game against Louisville in the ACC championship game. Just by parking it down there, being a big body. But he's more than that, right? He's talented and clearly a guy that's grown into a really solid player for Duke. And he's only 18 years old from Senegal. And, who knows, maybe he starts popping up on draft boards. And I think that the point being here that I would love to see some size, even if it's a guy that has more of a Frank type of, minutes. We just need somebody that can protect the basket, that can be a guy that's hard to push around, that can give you 5 good fouls. Because this year, I mean, the reality was, your options once Case and Pryor went down, obviously James Scott, who, for everything that, kind of went wrong as the season closed out for James overall is a really quality player, but he was just not a good matchup for literally Malowak and Kalkbrenner. Those are probably 2 of the top 10 players in the entire country that you don't want to face if you're Louisville. It was unfortunate that they ran into that, but you have to be prepared for something like that as you get to next season. And this year it was basically James Scott, who's an undersized big man who kind of plays like a stretch center, but can't shoot the ball like a stretch center. So he wasn't respected in that way. And then Noah Waterman, right? Like those were your options. And next year it'll be a little bit different, right? You'll have Ali Khalifa, you'll have Sananda Frew, you'll have, potentially a case
and Pryor back potentially.
Potentially a Case and Pryor, potentially I don't know if you could throw him down there, but potentially like a Nate Ament, right? So you're already talking about adding a lot more size. But yeah, I am curious if that's where they try to go back to the well one more time and bring in a guy that could be like a Malowak that might not play every single game, but he's going to give you some significant minutes when he does come in. But yeah, I want to see number one, like you guys said, we need a guy that's kind of a quasi star at the 3 spot, and then you, unless Javon Hadley comes back, but still, I think that you want to bring in probably one more person, and then you need a really good shooter. Like I want to see them go out and get somebody in the portal that's like a Rain Smith, that can do a lot, but when called upon, he's going to be just an unconscious type of Rain Smith, Kobe Bryant type of shooter. So those would be the couple of things that I think Louisville would be focused on. I think with the way that Pat Kelsey talks to and about Michael Brown, they see him as the starting point guard next year. So say you bring back Kobe Rogers and it's Kobe Rogers and Michael Brown as your 2 lead guards. I think that's solid, but I think you need some more shooting and some more depth to surround them as well. So very interested in the direction that this goes. Any other thoughts before we get out of here?
I was going to say just a couple guys. It's early on in the transfer portal, so there will be literally thousands of other players that will put their name in it. The Louisville's already reached out to Josh Dix, 2 guards actually from Iowa. One is Josh Dix, 6'5", lanky kid, 14 points a game, 42% three-point shooter on 5 attempts a game. Also had 2.8 assists per game, only turned the ball over less than once per game. Really just phenomenal shooter, like could fill that Rain Smith role perfectly and would actually have a little bit more size, which would probably help defensively. So I think that's a guy that would be interesting. Nick Davidson, we talked about, forward from Nevada, averaged 16 points a game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1.2 blocks. Plays back to the basket, good passer out of the post, really good spot-up three-point shooter. Like you said, perfect for the Pat Kelsey system. He hasn't narrowed down his list or anything. And then last guy, somebody who has narrowed down his list, who has his top 6, is Brock Harding, the second guard from Iowa. He's undersized. He's 6 foot, averaged 9 points a game, but 5 assists per game as well. Also shot 40% on 3-point attempts per game. A perfect player for Pat Kelsey's system. I don't imagine he would be a starter, particularly when you already have Michael Kobe, possibly Corin Johnson as well. But another great player that would fit the system, that could come in off the bench and facilitate the offense and run the offense and still shoot really well. So those are just a couple guys. Keep your eye on. It's really early. Louisville's going to reach out to 30, 40 different guys. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to get crazy excited about these dudes, but just guys to be aware
and
of.
If nothing else, if they don't even, pursue anything else with Davidson, Dix, Dix is going to be an interesting name, by the way, if he ends up at Louisville. Just throwing that out. Harding, these guys that we're talking about, the JUCO kid as well. It just goes to show you what types of players that they're going after. And then that can kind of really underline like where we could potentially be looking going forward as well. Like potentially, guys that they could be talking about. I am interested when the transfer portal opens on Monday. As we sit here, it's likely that you'll be listening after the transfer portal is open and a lot has changed already. But I'm interested. The ACC saw a lot of movement last season, conference, right? Like Louisville played 4 guys that used to play for U of L just in the ACC in this past season. So interested to see how things shake up there. But the coaching staff saw the most of players from the ACC. So I'm interested in once that portal opens up and guys start putting their names in there. If Louisville starts reaching out to teams with coaching changes, like at NC State, Virginia. Tay Davis just joined the portal from Notre Dame.
Love to get Tay Davis. Donald Hand Jr., I want to see if he does anything about the coaching change down at Florida State.
There you go.
Or was that Boston College?
Boston
Donald
College.
Hand Jr.
Boston College. Donald Hand.
Jameer Watkins was the senior. He doesn't have any other eligibility, I don't think. But Isaac McNeely, I'm hearing he's gonna, if he doesn't, if he's on the same page with the new Virginia coach, then he's potentially gonna put his name in the portal. I'm hearing. So
be great. Yeah, I mean there could be a lot of big name players in the ACC transferring interconference just because of so much coaching change. So I wouldn't expect that to be any different when you have got coaches from Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, Clemson. Like the rich are going to get richer, right? Like Clemson, one of their better players, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Why am I blanking? But he transferred from Boston College. Jaden Zachary is his name. But he transferred in from Boston College. Like, so there are absolutely opportunities for Louisville to kind of poach some high level Power 5 teams. Ultimately, I want to see winners on this team as well, right? That was something that they focused on this past season as they were developing the roster. I'd love to look at my bracket right now and see that Louisville's reached out to, in the next week, 3 or 4 players from teams that, made a deep run in March, right? Like, or that, I mean, ultimately that's how you got to do it. And so right now we're seeing that they're reaching out to guys that haven't necessarily had that success because their teams exited early, right? But ultimately, I think that winning needs to be a prerequisite for guys in the portal. Obviously, you're bringing in players that are talented from the freshman ranks, right? And you bring in
players
guys
that only want to win. We don't need any, heavy players that are coming here to showcase their personality and things of that nature. We just need guys who are willing to buy in and do whatever it takes to go win in March. So
yes, absolutely.
I think that'll be a requirement. That's a good point, Press. I think that'll be a requirement.
Yeah, win at all costs type of mentality. And so I do get scared, like if it does end up being 2 guys from Iowa that their coach got fired because their team didn't play well enough this year, or a guy from Nevada, which I don't know how Nevada finished this season, but they weren't in the tournament. So you'd like to see somebody from a UConn or I'm trying to think like a team that was knocked out here recently, right? Like
a Colorado State or something like that. You never know. It's one of those like the guard of McNeese. Like you never know. There's a lot of different there's players at the smaller schools who can play at the ACC level and excel at the ACC level. Absolutely. We've seen it happen year after year. Yeah. We saw it happen this year with Louisville. Terrence Edwards Jr. just came from James Madison,
right?
And
but you want to see,
well, in our opinions, an ACC first team ACC level player.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I'd like to see. As we're talking about, the structure of the roster overall. I like some of the players that you all pointed out, and I think that there is intentionality behind every player that ultimately is either in talks with Louisville, getting an offer from Louisville, or wherever that stands as well. So, final thoughts? Anything else before we get out of here?
Great stuff today, fellas. Yeah. That was lovely. I love talking to you guys. I love hearing your voices, and you guys get me excited, man. I'm just so ready to. I hate to move on that quick, and it's easier to move on though when you just had a kind of shitty ending to the season like that. Yeah. You kind of got hosed, and then you kind of lost the game against a team that you felt like you shouldn't have had to play that early.
Sure.
Yeah. Just
use that as
but
fuel.
At this point, I'm excited for this offseason. I'm excited to talk to you guys about these updates about what happens going forward in the transfer portal and then Pat Kelsey constructing this roster and what everything can mean for us going forward. So
yeah,
nothing else. Just I'm glad to be back talking to you guys about these kinds of things.
Yep, it's exciting, and we're going to keep it going week by week and just keep talking about players that Louisville is after. So make sure that if you have not already, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe so you get a notification whenever.
Turn your notifications on.
That's right.
Turn them on. Like, comment down below.
If you're listening on audio, for the amount of people that listen to our podcast on Spotify and Apple, the fact that people don't rate the show. It helps us. It helps you. Ultimately, it's going to help the players as well. Now that we're doing a lot more with the circle, right? Like
now,
right. So do us a favor, go down there, give us 5 stars, or if you don't, if you hate us, if you just hate listen every day, give us however many stars you feel is appropriate. But yeah, until next time, Roman Kelly, Jay Cook, Starting 502 podcast. Let's get out of here and go Cards.